Welcome to How to Leave Teaching, the podcast for educators feeling stuck, overwhelmed, or just yearning for something more. I'm Julie, once in your shoes, navigating those same challenges and emotions. Here, we share heartfelt stories and tactical advice from former teachers who found their way out, ensuring you're not alone on this journey. I am so glad you found us. Right. Today I'm here with Cindy Weaver, a former teacher who has struck out into a new career, and she's going to tell us today all about that journey, what she's doing now, what some of the biggest obstacles she's had to overcome have been, and much more. We're going to get into it. So welcome, Cindy.
Hi, thank you. It's great to be here.
Can you tell us a bit about your background in teaching and, how many years and what grades and such that you taught?
Sure. I've taught for over 23 years. It's somewhere between 23 and 25. I've taught mostly elementary, except for I taught 6th grade art for 1 year. But I've taught all the grades in elementary other than that. So.
Wow. Yeah, that's a long career and very varied. And what did you really like about teaching and what did you find really challenging?
Well, I loved teaching from the first day, but I started at a private school, and at that school, I had absolutely no planning time at all. And even lunch, we had to sit with the kids, and the kids could not talk. So I think I got to go to the bathroom during lunch, but I think that was it. And so I found myself teaching from 7 a.m. Till 10 p.m. at night, because I would stay at school until 5 and then go home, eat, and then just keep working because I had no time during the day. And I mean, I really call this phase, I've been tricked, because I came out of college, and I was ready to go. I had a really great education, and then all of a sudden and I was exasperated and I was crying, and, I still loved teaching, even though all those circumstances were taking me down. But I was just so surprised. I was like, they never told me this. Well, then we moved to another state, and I started in the public schools. And I was surprised to find somebody walk into my class and say, hey, can I help you with anything? It was a paraeducator, and I had, money to spend. And so that actually got better. But what I did is, since I had help, I just made more work for myself. And I didn't realize that I was making more work for myself. I just was excited about teaching. And so, but, I was just in the same pattern. I was like almost 7 to 10 at night. And then I had children, which makes it even more challenging. But I was just working a lot. And then one day I just had this anxiety attack where my stomach just kind of went into a knot. And so the next day my husband took me to the doctor. And on the way to the doctor, I was just like, I don't want to go back. I don't ever want to go back. I just want to go home. I just want to be home with my kids. And so it was kind of a revolution. Myself in the face and say, what's going on here? Am I going to quit? Or, what's happening? And what I realized is that even though there are a lot of, challenges put upon you as a teacher, you also put some on yourself. And so what I realized is that I had created no boundaries, and I was responding to external, what people thought I should be as a teacher instead of what I thought I should be. So I was responding to external factors, and I was leaving who I was and my passions outside the classroom door. So I kind of did 3 things. I changed my thoughts from like being motivated, being internally motivated instead of externally from what everybody else thought I should be. And I started putting boundaries around myself. And I brought things into the classroom that I really loved. Like I loved to dance. I loved music. I loved all the arts. So I taught math through dance choreography. I taught patterns through that. And I taught my kids to read through song lyrics. And I just did all these creative things. And then it was like, I just came alive again. So, and so that was just so pivotal for me in teaching. And it's what kept me in teaching so long. So, I then moved to another district, and I'd been there. This was my last district. I've been there for 13 years. And this phase was, I'm going to call it more with less, because I had a really good team. And I had never worked with a team before. I had other teachers, but we didn't work as teams. And so they were fun. They were supportive, both personally and professionally. And we divided and conquered. So, I wasn't doing as much work. So that was, it just made my teaching experience so much better. So it just got better and better. So really, that's my teaching experience kind of to date in a nutshell.
Yeah, that's so interesting. That idea of leaving yourself at the door, I think, is really that piece that's soul-sucking for so many of us. There's this scripted curriculum in a lot of districts, right? Mm-hmm. And is that what any of us studied education and pedagogical approaches to do? Like, no, a robot could do this. AI could do this. And what kind of satisfaction do you get from that at the end of the day? There's not. And with all the stress of teaching, I mean, if you don't have that, you are not going to make it.
Right. Yeah,
I'm really impressed that you were able to do that, because I had colleagues too that would say, just shut the door and do what you want to do. And that's nerve-wracking for a lot of us.
Uh-huh.
So did you have a tough time with implementing boundaries? How did you kind of find the strength to do that amidst all the pressure?
Actually, no, because the reason I didn't is because when I had that anxiety attack, it scared me so much that it kind of like, I just didn't want to live that way. And I realized what it had come to. And so it was like, it just propelled me into wanting a better life. And so boundaries are so like easy for me now because of that experience, that I almost am the other way. It's like, well, you can say yes to some things, but I just almost became afraid of saying yes. And so I was just, I would say no to more than I would say yes to. So no, it wasn't actually hard for me, because it was like survival. It was my health.
Yeah. So. Yeah. I mean, it gets to that point, right, where like our bodies won't let us ignore them anymore, and our minds and our hearts.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Yeah. It's sad that it has to come to that, but yeah, however you can come about that lesson, it's golden.
Yeah. For sure.
So you weren't getting a lot of pushback in terms of, I remember, saying, I'm going to leave at the end of the day. I'm not staying here until 8 o'clock at night. And, administrators would straight up shame you. Did you not get a lot of pushback?
I felt like, except for the experience in my the private school that I was in, where at one time I got yelled at by the principal for not being in a dunking booth, and it was in front of lots of kids. So I know, funny now, right? But at the time I was like in tears. But
I mean, how much more can they, humiliate us? Put us in a dunking booth?
Anyway, but after that, I was in 3 different public schools after that. And I just got very fortunate to have awesome administrators, and just super supportive, and not watching you like a hawk, trusting you and treating you like professionals. So I did get really fortunate in that way, because I know it's not that way everywhere. So
yeah, I really asked that because I think there is a lot of like internal fear and kind of projections that we do. Like, if I say no to that, then I'm going to be in big trouble, or they're going to be mad at me. And it's like, a lot of times there aren't any repercussions. It's all in our minds.
Yeah.
And I mean, to your earlier point about, some of these are in, things that we impose upon ourselves, and we don't even realize that we're contributing to this kind of like extreme pressure.
Right. Yeah, I remember I went to a conference once. I think it was a writing or literature, something for my work. And there was this teacher presenting, and she said, now she was explaining how to do the activity and what she was doing. She said, now you get them busy, you get them started into the activity. She said, then you go back to that back table and you get done what you need to get done. And, I was like, I have been waiting for somebody to tell me that I don't have to be with my kids every minute of the day. And that's one of those external things that I feel like teachers respond to that does not make them a better teacher. In fact, it makes them worse because, they don't have time to actually plan for their kids. So, things like that. And if like if I was, and maybe as, I got more experience, I was kind of like, I'm the experienced one now. So if the district brought us something new, like a new curriculum, and I was like, okay, it's going to take me this many more hours to implement that and take that much away from other things in my classroom. So instead of adding more hours to my day, I would just say, if you're adding more to my plate, then I'm taking something off. And so, because it's not my decision, it's yours, and so that's the way I looked at that.
Yeah. I think that's really smart. I had been through a period in my career post-teaching where I was feeling really inundated, and I just kept getting asked to do more and more and more. And that was the advice I got from someone. Well, then ask them what they want you to deprioritize. It never occurred to me, leaving the classroom, like, oh, I can kind of push back on what's being put on my plate. Okay.
I think that the whole difficult thing is that, so many problems are presented about education. And if you actually would let teachers solve the problems, they would be solved.
So true. So true. And well, tell us about what you're doing now and what your transition was like.
Okay. So, my transition out of teaching wasn't actually because I didn't like teaching or because it was becoming too much, because like I told you, I had found ways to work with it and I had a really great team. And so I don't know, it felt like becoming pregnant and knowing that something's growing in you and calling for a change. And for me, it was like more like, I want freedom. And I especially want time freedom. It's like you have to go to the bathroom on schedule when you're a teacher. But, I want time freedom. I want to work from anywhere in the world, and I want health. And I felt like I wasn't getting enough rest. Like my alarm went off at 5:30 a.m. and I often didn't get home until 5:30. And I just felt like my body was not getting enough rest. And I just really longed for freedom to make decisions and choices about my day. So it was more what I wanted to go to than what I wanted to leave. So it just about 3 years before I left, I started working with this coach in Hawaii, and she was an online course business consultant. And so I started working with her in the summers and, whenever I could. And I just kind of took it slow just to see if that's what I would be interested in. And then next year, I just was getting more interested in it. So I was just pointing myself. I started building my website. And then what I did at school is I started making my space, my personal space and my physical space ready to leave. So it was like I needed to tell myself that you're getting ready to make a change. So what I did is I just started purging, my classroom, and I started getting it ready as if I was leaving, even though I knew I wasn't quite ready to leave. At home, I created an office space. So I was creating my world as if this transition was going to happen, although I didn't have any hard plan for it to happen. But I just pointed myself that way. You know, I was exploring options and I was making myself ready. And then it just so happened that at the end of that year, I was teaching second grade, and they were going to delete one of our 4 sections. And I have seniority. And so I just didn't even think of, leaving and then and I knew my other, my co-teacher was going to have to take that position, and it was a math interventionist position, and it was 4 days a week. I didn't think about it. And all of a sudden I was like, I want that position. And so she could have the full-time position. And so I took it. And so last year I took it. It was a 4-day, and I had every Wednesday off. And when I woke up on Thursday morning, I didn't want to go to school. And so I was just paying attention to my body and paying attention, to everything that was happening around me. And I woke up, I think it was like the end of March, and I was just like, I'm done. I just knew that I was done. And I went home and I told my husband, and he said, I've been waiting for you to trust yourself. And I realized that that's really what it was. You know what you know. And you really have to trust what you're feeling and everything that's pointing to it. And so honestly, from that point on, I probably cried the rest of the year, because this had been my home and my life for over 20 years. And I loved it. And I felt like I was making such a big shift, like leaving a family member. And my team, of course, we were really close. And so that was just another piece. But I just knew there wasn't any going back. And so, I pointed myself that direction. From March to May, I, got my classroom ready. And on the last day of school, I walked out crying, and went to our party, and we had a great party. But, and on the first day of school, when people went back, in August here, I cried again. And all the while knowing that I had made the right decision. It was just that I needed to almost grieve before I could go on. So that's where I am now. And I'm totally just overjoyed that I made the decision.
I think that's really interesting that you sort of prepared your physical space, but it sounds like that may have had an effect on where you were emotionally, in terms of readiness to leave, beginning to trust yourself, kind of feeling like you weren't encumbered physically, and maybe that you weren't encumbered as much mentally.
Exactly. So
I think, yeah.
And like, we're off in the summer anyway, so it was hard to know, like, you don't feel like you've made a shift.
Yeah.
So honestly, it hasn't been until the middle of August, when school actually started and I wasn't going back, that I realized that, oh, you're not going back.
Want to know how you know if your resume is working for you or not? It's whether or not you're getting interviews. And if you're not getting interviews, it's not because you've been teaching. It's how you're writing about your teaching skills and experience in that resume. And I get it. Translating your teacher skills for a variety of different industries and job roles that you've never done before, that's daunting. That's where What's Next Teacher comes in. Our pre-populated resume templates bridge that gap. No more staring at a blank page, wondering how to start. Whether you're aiming for roles like instructional designer, corporate trainer, college admissions officer, project manager, and even fields as diverse as machine learning engineer, what I did was put together 30 of the top industries that teachers are transitioning into and translated your skills for each one of them. All you have to do is download, edit, and put in your own information, tweak it. you will understand how to translate your teacher skills once you take a look at these resume templates. And if you want a bundle, we've got bundles too, so you can get 5 at once. Go to whatsnextteacher.com/shop to check out these resume templates. And I really hope that they take the daunting feeling out of resume writing for you. Yeah, I think that those patterns kind of become like part of us and the rhythms of the school year. Yeah. So tell us about what you're doing now and sort of what a typical day looks like for you.
Okay. So I'm an online course consultant. And so what I do is I work primarily with life coaches and therapists, and I help them to create courses to have additional resources for their businesses. So I have some different services. I have a one-on-one where I will just meet with them, just being laser focused on their course. And I've developed a 5-step methodology that we go through. And then I have a 6-week cohort, which I offered it in March, and I'll offer it, whenever I feel like I want to. But so we meet together once a week, and then they have materials to work on. Then we come back together. And so that's the 6-week cohort. I just released a new program, which is called Course Creation Express, and it is a work at your own pace program, which has 6 modules teaching you how to create an online course. And it also has a course library called the Course Cafe, where there are a lot of other resources to help you with building your course. It begins with the onboarding coaching call to help with focus. And one of the interesting things I learned when I started my business is that people who would come to talk to me or that I was working with, they really didn't know what they wanted to do. They had this foggy idea. And so more and more I realized that I can't start with building a course. I have to start with clarity.
Yeah.
So I created this little mini course on clarity called the Pearl. And it's just like a 6-week. It's really mini, but it's really fun. I'm dressed as a mermaid, and they have fish activities. I guess I couldn't get away from being the teacher, but it's a little break from all the adult world. But anyway,
Yeah.
It helps them, whether you're starting a new, endeavor, or it's about building a course or whatever you're doing. It just helps you get clarity. So that's a little mini course that I put on my website that people can access at any time. So that's kind of what I'm doing.
And how did you really get interested in doing that? I mean, I understand there are a lot of parallels there between the teaching world, but really online delivery and course creation is somewhat different than the skill set that we really do draw on every day as teachers. So did you have to upskill, or, how did you really think about that?
I will say this. Honestly, when I went through this 12-month program with this woman, I realized that she had not been a teacher. Mm-hmm. She developed a really great program, but she had not been a teacher. And so as I went through it, I was like, oh, but you need this piece and you need this piece. And, but really, course creation is about curriculum development and planning and content. And the one thing that I have seen in the course creation industry, because it's growing, is people want to just slap a course out really quickly.
Yeah.
They're really bypassing the student, and the entire course should be driven by the student. And we know that, that when we go to plan a lesson, the first thing we think about is, how is the student going to access this? And
yeah,
I feel like it's one of my big things, because I really see it, people don't know how to do that, and they don't know how to create a target outcome so that their student can get from here to there, like backwards design.
Yeah.
So there are a lot of pieces that are really, just tap into our skill set as teachers. But the way I actually got into it is I was getting my master's in technology and e-learning, and I went through a very traumatic event in my life. And so I went to this therapist, and we were working together for like 2 years. And then it was really wonderful. And then one time I just felt this anxiety, and I just wanted to meet with her. I wanted to hear her voice and, her, just some of the ways that she had been working with me. But when I went to her calendar, she was booked. And I mean, she was booked like 2 months out.
Yeah.
So I went to her website, and I thought, well, maybe there's some, resources, even just a little video or something. And there was nothing. And so when I met with her again, I said, I was just wondering if you would consider, putting more resources on your website for your clients. And she was like, I think that is such an awesome idea. She said, I've thought about it. I want to do it. But she said, I absolutely have no idea how to do it, and it overwhelms me. She said, I don't know how to plan, the content. I don't know how to do the technology. And I'm like, that just seems so easy for me. Like, I was gaining the skill set in technology. I already had the teaching part. And so I saw this gap in that, like therapeutic world, where the only way you could access help was one-to-one. And I just felt like, I think that's a gap that I can fill. So that was my other, reason for kind of jumping into that.
I love that. It's so interesting to have, sort of an epiphany in a real life context like that, in terms of identifying a real need.
Right. Yeah, for sure.
And I see a lot of teachers that I work with wanting the perfect job description to materialize that they can apply for, and they're going to check all the boxes, and they're going to be hired because they checked all the boxes. And your story really illustrates the ways in which we can be creative and really identify existing needs and figure out how to fill them. Mm-hmm. I mean, who's more creative than a teacher,
right,
to address an existing need, right?
Right. And I guess I felt too that, I didn't want to just go to another 9-to-5. If I was going to leave teaching, I was going to do it on my terms, and I was going to work for myself. And I knew that would be harder, because if you do get another job somewhere, you're going to get paid right away. And that's the hardest thing, I think, to adjust to, is that when you're a teacher, you work, but you're going to get a paycheck every month or whatever. And, when you are in business for yourself, it's kind of up to you. So that's probably been the biggest challenge, the whole marketing piece.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That part is not fun.
Yeah. Especially when you don't have any skills. And that's the one thing that teachers don't have a lot of skills in.
Yeah, it's so true. I have noticed through this venture that, I've seen a lot of parallels where, as a teacher, I was really socialized growing up, I should say, I was really socialized growing up as a girl, that I was going to be this good girl, and I would go in and take orders from whoever at work and just tell me what to do, and I'll do it. And, not having that, or like the thought of not having that, I think is kind of intimidating for a lot of us who've been enculturated that way.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And we don't market ourselves, right? Because that's not how we're really, we're there as helpers, right? We're not the stars of the show. We're facilitators, guides on the sides. Yeah. And so I could see how that would be something you'd need to beef up. But you're doing it. And how do you sort of gain the kinds of skills like marketing that you maybe didn't have naturally?
Well, now I'm working with a marketing coach, which is a group coaching program. And I honestly think, I don't know if I would be able to really do it without that, just because of the support. Not because I couldn't maybe learn how, but I don't think I could learn how as well. It would take me a lot longer to do that. And I think just the support of the people around us who are having the same kind of issues. And then I realized that, that's just how this goes. And it's a process of growing it, and you just move forward every day. And so just having that group has been really helpful for me. And then I do all my marketing right now organically on Facebook and Instagram and LinkedIn. And I don't know if you've heard of Alignable, but Alignable is a group of, it's kind of like another social marketing, but it's different in that there's lots of different groups, and then they put you go into smaller groups and you get to know people. And anyway, I think it's just in the US, but then I also am thinking about, just business groups that are face to face in my town. But I've realized that a lot of them actually, even though we're not in COVID anymore, are still going virtual just because it works for people better. So yeah. I don't know if I'll do that or not, but.
Yeah. Well, so how do you sort of for yourself set metrics for success in this phase of your career if, it's internally and solo driven?
That's a great question. The first thing I wanted, I've gotten, and that was time freedom.
Yeah.
And so, I achieved that. I worked into that. And then I keep a lot of data sheets on like people I'm engaged with. I have a Facebook group. So I keep a lot of, data sheets on those. I have an email list. And when somebody signs with me, I go back and I look and I say, why did they sign with me? And I just backtrack and see where my first contact was with them. And that gives me information on, okay, maybe I need to do a little marketing here. So it's kind of a grand experiment, honestly, right now. So.
Yeah. I think that's a great lesson for folks to hear too, is that you can figure it out, and you will figure it out by doing it.
Right.
Yeah. And so you wanted time freedom. Have you found that there have been challenges in managing your own time? I know when I went from teaching K-12 to being an assistant professor at a university, and I had so much more time freedom, but I worked more because there was no boss.
That's the danger, right? Because my ultimate goal is to work 4 hours a day. But right now I'm working, 8. But the thing of it is, what I have noticed is that I'm picking up on my internal rhythms, so that I get up. I just am naturally, it's like my alarm used to go off at 5:30 and I was trying to get away from that. Well, I still wake up at 6. So I get up and I work till about 11. Well, what I do is I just have a cup of tea, and then I get my phone and I just start engaging with my audience. And I spend about an hour engaging. And then I have a spreadsheet that I've laid out a schedule for the week. And I always have to look at it because I have to remember, what am I doing today? But and then I'll go to my office and work for a while. And then I realize that, and this happened in the classroom too, that from about 11 to 1, well, probably more like 12 maybe, that I really took a slump down. Like I remember at work after lunch, it was so hard for me to initially get it back up. Yeah. But so I allow myself to just have about a 2-hour period of rest, eat lunch or whatever. And then I seem to late afternoon into the evening kind of pick up again. So I'm watching those patterns, but I feel like I honestly haven't been into, this full-time space long enough to kind of really develop that solidly. So.
Yeah. I mean, it sounds like you're doing a good job of going with your own body and your own rhythms and sort of using an energy management approach rather than maybe a time management in a sense.
Yeah.
And that's great. I really did not enjoy that after the lunch slump where, you're trying to have eyes in the back of your head, but you're also falling asleep.
Right. Exactly.
That's a luxury. Yeah. And what kind of advice do you have for teachers that are thinking about leaving the classroom, but they're scared for whatever reason?
Yeah, it's terrifying. It really is. I mean, because it's something new and there are a lot of pieces. One of the things I would say is, like, especially if a teacher is really so overwhelmed that they just want out. I would say not to jump very quickly, because you're very likely to jump from one set of problems and stressors to another. And so you may get rid of these problems, but you'll gain different ones. So what I would say is, first of all, like, take some time to reflect and know who you are outside of being a teacher. Like, understand your passions and the things that light you up. And then just start experimenting with some of those things, in small ways, while you still have an income and you don't have to have the stress of, making money. So I would definitely know who you are before you make a shift out. And then, like I said, I think if you're really serious about it, starting to just give yourself the message that you're leaving by purging your classroom and starting to act like you're leaving and act like you're building a business at home and at school. And that was kind of like step 2 for me. And then, you have to, and everybody's situation is different with finances, you have to know the time that it might be right. And you might need to piece a few things together, like during COVID, one of the things that I always wanted to do, I'm a big journaler. And so I was home, and I had more time. So I took some of my artwork and I turned them into, I created journals, writing journals, and I published them on Amazon. And so now I still have passive income coming in from those. And so I didn't even think about it at the time. I just wanted to do it because of the creativity part. But they continue to sell. Like, you make one and it sells. And so just thinking about multiple streams of income until you find the one place that you really want to, focus on.
I think that's such great advice. And I loved what you said earlier too about getting clear on what you wanted to go towards instead of like feeling compelled to leave as the primary energy. How did you really hone in on sort of those top 3 values?
Well, I kind of did. I knew that I always wanted to be a teacher, and that what I was going to go to was going to be a new iteration of teaching. And I also knew that I need to create to be happy. I have to create. And I used to be a freelance artist. I was a portrait artist, and I loved that. But, the market for it was like, I couldn't earn money doing that. And so when I started getting more into technology, I realized how much creating projects and programs and even curriculum was actually meeting that creativity need. So I knew that I needed, my kind of code is I need to create, and I love to teach, and I need space, I need time space. So kind of my, deal breaker things.
Yeah. One exercise that I've done with clients is to go through your entire life history, right? And kind of chart out, like, what are the high points? What have they been? What are the low points been? And what are the commonalities there? And that'll help you really think beyond a job description or an organization and really think about what it is that you want to go toward, as you were saying. And there's so much that can fit into that. Exactly. I mean, I was a teacher of writing, philosophy, and literature, and I'm in data science now. And I had no clue that there would be so much overlap. But when you kind of zoom out, there really, really is. Yeah. And what about the emotional piece? I mean, I know so many teachers really grapple with feelings of guilt, as if, I'm leaving my students. And I think guilt too around leaving a a helping profession, right? Where we do feel like we're making a difference. And then, you know, we're going to go into record scratch of that career.
I don't have any of that. I honestly don't. I think it's something that I dealt with long ago within my teaching, because what I saw is I saw a lot of teachers taking the emotional components of what their kids were dealing with home. And what I also saw in that is that they could not be as good for their kids while they were carrying them so heavily. And I just have this overall philosophy that what you build in yourself is the gift you give to the world. What you build in yourself is the gift you give to your students. And so, you know, that's my whole goal in life. It's to build the thing in myself that I'm responding to my passions and my loves, because I know anybody who crosses my space, I'm going to give something to because of that.
Wow.
So that's kind of how I approach that.
That's amazing. That's a wonderful note to kind of wrap up on. But tell the audience where they can find you, what you've got going on right now, and anything else that you want to share.
My website is coursemagicdesigns.com, and about everything is there. I have the little course on clarity, which is called The Pearl, in there. If you go to my Facebook profile, I have a link tree which has all of my links in it for just about everything that I do. So that's pretty much it.
Yeah. And with the Pearl, do you focus just on getting clarity around the course you would want to create, or does it?
You know, that's how it started out, because people who were coming to me wanted to build courses. But what I realized is that I went through it myself as I was building it, because one of the things I wanted to know is this course creating thing that I'm doing, is this really what I want to do? Or what about all these other pieces of my life? Because I have a lot of art pieces of my life, and or is that it? And so I went through it, and it starts by really just dumping everything that you could possibly do. You know, from just the little thing that lights you up to your skills that you have credentials for, all of it. And it takes you through a whole process until you come down to the one thing that is yours to give right now. And I say that because I feel like there are so many things that were on my list that I actually could, but I really feel like there was one thing that wanted to come forth right now. And that can change, you know, but right now, everything was pointing to another iteration of teaching. And so that's where I landed.
Yeah, I asked because it sounds like something really valuable for anyone that's thinking they want to leave teaching and are trying to figure out what's next.
Yeah, I think it's for a what's next, you know, it's a what's next tool, basically.
That's awesome. Well, I would urge everybody to check it out. I'm going to check it out. And I just have a lot of...
that I was a mermaid in there, right? So.
Very timely.
Right.
Well, thank you so much. I have so much gratitude for you sharing your story and these nuggets of wisdom too. I took a lot away myself, so I know that the audience is really going to enjoy this as well.
Well, thank you for having me. This was a lot of fun. All right. Best wishes to you.
Thank you.
Right. Bye-bye.
Thanks for tuning in to How to Leave Teaching. It's a complex transition, but you're not in it alone. Dive deeper and find more resources on our website. Keep pushing forward, and we'll be right here with you in the next episode.